Hi, everybody. Welcome out to the Log Room Guys Craft Beer Show. It is Tuesday, October the 5th, 2022. Jersey Johnny coming at you. With me, as always, is none other than Mr. Beer Samurai. Say hello, Mr. Samurai.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to my favorite show of the year.
Yeah. Why would it be your favorite show of the year, Dave?
Oh, because we get to drink pumpkin beers.
We get to drink pumpkin beers. If you didn't tell from the opening slide right there, instead of a hop on the mic, there's a pumpkin on the mic.
And people who watch the show know my feelings on pumpkin beers, but we do this anyway.
There's a lot of people that don't watch the show that know your feelings on pumpkin beers.
This is absolutely true.
So, I decided to go with a beer shirt. I decided since we're doing a pump, it's a little chilly in here, and I wanted to wear orange for the occasion, and I only have blue Mets hoodies, so I wore my Syracuse Orangeman.
You need to rectify that situation.
What's that?
You need to rectify that situation.
Directify?
Or directify or rectify, whatever you want to say.
Directify.
We're going to scatological humor immediately.
Yeah, I do not want to talk about the Mets, so we'll leave it at that.
Hey, they're in the playoffs. Who knows? Maybe they're
just I know. And maybe they do. And if they do, fine, I'll give them a pass. But the bottom line is just not that we're going to get into a sports broadcast, because you can tune into that a little later this evening and find out my feelings on that, but on the other show. But in any event, this is a worse collapse than 07 and 08, because they were in first place until this past weekend. And only the Mets could reach 100 wins
and not win the division
and lose the division on the same night.
But you know what? Not for nothing. You have to hand it to Atlanta. In a streak of how many games they only lost one?
I know. But
and you can't. I mean, seriously, until like the very end of the season, the same streak, the Mets had only lost 3.
You can hand it to Atlanta, but the Mets should have had the division. Should have. And I don't mean could have. Yeah, anybody could say could have. Should have. The teams they were playing in the month of September, they should have had the division wrapped up a week or more ago.
Folks, this is a true Mets fan. 100 wins, pissed we didn't win the division.
Exactly.
Amazing.
So on that note, so this is a beer podcast though. So now we're gonna obviously, if you've read the intro, if you saw the intro, you heard us talking a minute ago. This is our annual pumpkin beer show. It's actually our third annual pumpkin beer show.
Third annual
pumpkin beer show. But before we get to that, though, let's acknowledge the fact that there's beer brewed in other countries, and today we actually celebrate our neighbors to the north.
We do. Not with any of their beer, mind you.
No, we're not having any Canadian beer tonight whatsoever. But
because it's a pumpkin show, and the Canadians, I guess, are too smart to make pumpkin beer. I don't know. There's got to be a few Canadian pumpkin ales.
I'm sure if we looked, we would find them. But
no, maybe they're too proud.
But
I'd be proud of not brewing a pumpkin.
This is true. But in any event, happy Canadian Beer Day.
Happy Canadian Beer Day.
Happy Canadian Beer Day. All right.
So, more in keeping with the theme today, John came up with found a day that is not on my calendars.
It's not,
which is a shock.
I happened to see it, and then I researched just to make sure it was indeed the day. But it is Happy National Pumpkin Seed Day. Today is National Pumpkin Seed Day. So there you go. Happy National Pumpkin Seed Day.
So take them, roast them, salt them, put a little spice on them.
Mm-hmm. One other day I just want to throw in there really quick. Again, has nothing to do with beer, pumpkins, or sports for that matter. Jess told me before.
What is that?
And she said it in a way, which is why I'm bringing it up. She said, "Happy Gilmore Girls Day." She said to me.
Is it Gilmore Girls Day?
Today is the
anniversary of the first episode?
22nd anniversary of the first episode, the pilot.
I am very embarrassed to say that I used to watch that show pretty regularly. The writing is fantastic. The actors, almost every one of those actors went on to do something. Mm-hmm. It was a really well done show.
It was a very well done show. It was a very well done show. And the writing, you're right. The writing was spot on.
The writing was ridiculously good.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, it's that day. But one more day, and that'll segue us into getting our guest on the show, since he's been sitting for patiently 5 minutes waiting to drink his beer.
We get some guests on the show that are they're going to tell us their experiences and all that. Not a lot of them are true storytellers.
Nope.
But our next guest is a true storyteller. So for National Storytelling Day,
happy National Storytelling Day,
we are proud to introduce John Staradumsky.
Welcome to the show, John. How are you?
Thanks, guys. I appreciate that introduction. Some people have said that I'm very good at telling stories, whether they're true or not.
A story's a story, nonetheless. So.
Yeah. So,
hey, never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yeah, that's paramount. Yeah.
Very, 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 very.
The thing is, though, I will say that I will tell the story with any untruth in it, but when the story is over, then I will out the embellishments.
Well, yeah.
Because there's
depending on the reaction to the story, I mean, and who you're telling it to,
Nah, almost always out the embellishments.
Fair enough.
Almost always, I think, probably that could be a story itself. Truth and reporting. There we go.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. So before we get into our storytelling, our discussions, and everything else, I'm thirsty. I need to drink a beer.
I've already started mine. John's already started his.
So what are you two drinking while I pour mine?
What do you got there, John?
Well, you guys talked about Canada and no pumpkin beers. I have one that gets beat up a little bit, but is really a longtime favorite of mine, and it's Blue Moon pumpkin ale. The reason I like this so much is because I've been drinking it since it's actually been around since 1995. So it was one of the first pumpkin beers, and I really think it's well done. I get a 6-pack every year. I can tell you it's not going to make my top 3, but I do like it. Guilty pleasure, however you classify it. It's got pumpkin flavor, it's got spice, and I do enjoy it. And of course, you've got the Molson Coors connection, so maybe there is some Canada in that. Right?
And a lot of our listeners are sitting there going, but Blue Moon is out of Colorado, is it not? It wasn't always out of Colorado. Right, when Coors bought it, they brought it there. I forget where was it first brewed? That's a good question, but I don't think it was Colorado.
We'll have to.
This is a good question.
We'll have to check. We'll have to check into that. While we're talking later,
I'll play producer while you play producer. Well, I'll tell you what I'm drinking.
Oh, wait a minute. We got a comment. Who did it comment from? A comment is from Doug Smith, the Bruguru. Cheers, guys.
I know that guy.
Cheers, Doug. Cheers, Doug. Thanks. So anybody wants to play producer, let us know where Blue Moon was originally done. Dave, what are you drinking?
Well, John and I were both away this past weekend on various trips, which you'll hear more about next week. Mm-hmm. So we'll tease that out right now. But I went up into New England. John went west to the Steel City, and I wound up grabbing a 4-pack of Wormtown Brewery's Pumpkin Patch. Wormtown's out of Worcester. Mm-hmm. I'm not a big fan of Worcester because I lived in Pawtucket, and Worcester stole the Paw Sox, and now they're the Woo Sox, so they can go screw themselves. But the brewery, and the brewery, John, you would love them because they've got a location in Patriot Place.
There you go. I've been to the location in Patriot Place over by Gillette. It's a nice little spot. But their main brewery's in Worcester. So
over by Gillette. Yeah, no, that's probably about 2-3 years ago. Maybe they first opened.
Yeah, early. It's
if you could get onto the roof, you could watch the game.
Wow. It's early. Yeah, you can.
By Gillette? No, they're
next to Gillette.
They're a mall.
Yeah. Well, there's a mall. Like if you walk out of Gillette, you walk into the mall, right? They're in the mall. Yep. So you walk out, you walk across the courtyard there and into Gillette. So, but
I was incorrect. Blue Moon was first brewed in 1995 by Sandlot Brewing in Denver, Colorado.
There you go.
So they are a Denver brewery.
Well, they're not in Boulder, Colorado. At least you got, or Golden, Colorado. Excuse me, you got that right.
Golden. But,
so they were moved.
Moved. Yeah, kind of, sort of.
There you go.
Within the same state, though. It's still a move.
All right. Well, I went with a Massachusetts beer for my first one, and there's an interesting story to it. And I'll even say it. I'll admit it. All right.
I'm gonna grimace as he introduces.
He's gonna grimace. Okay. So this is the story, and there's a reason I'm actually gonna come clean with it. All right. I was really busy today, and I forgot to get my third beer in the fridge. The other two were already. All right. And so I had to go with 3 because we're going to have 3 on the show tonight. So I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? Maybe I was going to have like an awkward tan lines or something like that. So now we're drinking pumpkins tonight. And in the back of my fridge since last fall has been this bottle of Dunkin' Pumpkin, all right, from Harpoon. All right. So I'm like, all right, it's been sitting there. It literally has not left the fridge since last fall. All right. So it's not like it came out, got hot, in and out. It's been cold for a year. All right. So I'm like, you know what? Let me have it. Let me just see how good it is. Did the coffee? It's the Dunkin' Pumpkin, so it's the coffee. Here, I can throw up the crawl right now. Coffee pumpkin ale. I wanted to see, did the coffee fall off? Did the pumpkin fall off? Is it just like a bland nothing? Is it actually better? What is it? I'm going to take another sip really quick.
Could it get worse?
It's actually better than I remember it was last year. It is.
I'm actually not surprised.
It's better than it was. It's the coffee. The coffee was ridiculously strong last year. All right. Which, okay, that's fine if you like that. It's mild enough, but it's still there, and it's playing really nice with the pumpkin, and the beer has not fallen off at all. I'm actually liking the beer better this year than I did last year. So, which means I got to buy a 6-pack of it and put it in the fridge until next year.
There you go, folks. You heard it here first. If you want to try the Harpoon coffee beers, buy them a year ahead of time.
There you go.
It's not surprising to me either. I actually find that pumpkin beers, especially the ones that have more pronounced spice to them, the spice makes it last longer, right? If you've got some dry and nutmeg in there, and
especially cloves. The cloves are
the cloves. That tends to, sometimes the pumpkin will fall off a little bit, but I do like that Dunkin' beer. That's a good one, and I actually think I have a can somewhere from last year too. So.
Well, there you go.
Cloves are used as an antiseptic in some cultures. The Indian culture uses cloves as an antiseptic. An astringent, sorry.
There you go.
See that.
But yeah, it's very good. And again, not that it was bad by any means last year, but it's definitely better than I remember it. So, buy a 6-pack, drink a couple this year, save a few for next year, and do that every year. Why not? If you like the Harpoon beers, go for it.
If you keep watching the show and keep taking our advice on that, eventually you'll have no room to walk in your house with all the beers that you're saving to drink in the next year.
This is very true.
You've been to my house.
Oh, you've been to my house. And we've all been to Dave's house.
His camera's pointed in the one area that's not covered in beer.
Right, exactly. On that note, this will not be on my top 3 either, but in any event.
I gotta say, this one is very, very restrained. It's not extremely spicy whatsoever. So this one's not going to last a year. There's spices in it, but it's really not strongly spiced.
Fair enough.
So not.
You're right.
I can't complain too much. It's going, as you can tell, it's going down pretty damn easily.
Yeah, Wormtown makes decent beer. So I'm not surprised. Huh?
Yeah. Don't worry, Be Hoppy is actually that's a pretty solid IPA.
Don't worry, Be Hoppy's a good beer. Good beer. So, John, what's new? Getting off the pumpkins for a second. How's Bruguru.com going? And honest craft beer reviews.
Still a lot of HCBRs is doing pretty well. We've got some solid contributors, and we don't get the post volume we did in our heyday. But I think that's because there's a proliferation of beer groups all over Facebook now, right?
Sure.
And you've diluted the pool, so to speak, but still have fun. As far as website, I still have a Herculean project in the works to update all the pages to my new, more mobile-friendly format.
Nice.
It's we're getting there, and as I do that, Google is very, very touchy about the mobile formatting, and they won't show you in their search results if you're not friendly to that. They definitely prioritize that over desktop oriented content. So hits are picking up a little bit with that. And of course, I use Google for Google AdSense for advertisements on my pages to monetize and hopefully get some of my web hosting fees back. So.
Paid for, yeah, exactly. It's always a nice thing when that happens.
Yeah.
So great. That's great. And anybody out there that listens to us on a regular basis, or even if you're just listening to us for the first time, check out on Facebook, check out Honest Craft Beer Reviews. It's a great group. Join it. And commit to getting involved too. Don't just, read it, put up whatever you're drinking, put up what you think. and get some dialogue and back and forth going. It's a great group, and check out bruguru.com too. It's also an awesome website. So, yeah. How I'm literally almost done with this thing already.
Yeah, I've got one more quaff and this is gone.
Yeah, close to it too.
Yeah, and I'm shocked that was not in a wow, this was a bad beer kind of way. I'm just shocked that, I guess I shouldn't be, having a year on it. It's not like it was a 5% New England IPA sitting in my fridge for a year.
Where's Gene?
Where's Gene?
Although the constant refrigeration, that's key too. I actually found a 5-year-old Sierra Nevada beer camp West Coast IPA. Oh, and it was good. It was way in the back of my garage beer fridge. And the reason that I found it is because the fridge died. It gave up. And so I had to rescue everything out of that fridge and bring it into the house where it's at least air conditioned, right? And fit as many of them in the food fridge as the wife would allow. But I said, okay, this has been hanging around long enough. I need to drink this one. And I was pretty surprised. I thought it was going to be undrinkable, right? But it was pretty good. So.
That's awesome. I did that once about 2 years ago. Right around Christmas, I found a 6.5% New England IPA, like a one-off kind of a small batch thing that LIC Beer Project in Long Island City, New York, in Queens had done. And it was, shocker, and Gene will bust my chops for this, but this was nothing more than, again, it was in the back of a beer fridge that, you put stuff in and just, get in there and rotate it. Keeps getting pushed back. It was the only thing back there. And it was also one that had they only did like a small square label for it because it was a brewery only release. So it was just, you couldn't see a label on it. It was just the silver part of the can, right? So I go through it, and it's about a year old, maybe a little less than a year old, just close to and I pull it out, and I'm like, oh my God. But it obviously was back there the entire time, constant cold temperatures.
But it is now a running joke.
And
that John ages IPAs.
Specifically because of this beer is why I'm telling the story. And this is a running joke because of this beer. So anyway, I open it up and I pour it. It still poured beautifully. It still had a nice haze to it. There was no chunkage by any means in it, and nothing that separated, and it drank delicious. There was no DO. It literally was as I remember it was, as much as I can remember at that point it was very well. It was very good. It was, somebody could have handed that beer to me and told me they just bought it and it was packaged like a couple weeks ago, and I would have believed them. That's how good it was. So, if you brew a beer right and you can a beer right, and no oxygen gets in there, and it's kept in the fridge in the back, and it's in a can, so forth and so on, you can get lucky.
And that's where the coldest air flows in the fridge, right? Because the fan blows it to the back, so it's going to be kept the coldest of anywhere in that fridge, and it's not getting exposed to any temperature fluctuations, most likely when you open the door and close the door. But this West Coast IPA was a double IPA. It was malty. It had I think when it was young, it probably would have been really, really citrusy, maybe piney, and those beers will always last longer than I've had to dump a lot of modern IPAs that are light malty and very delicate hops, fruity, the tropical fruity kind of stuff. They will not in most cases hold up like that. And I don't want to say that every beer that I found in the fridge was good, because there were some dumpers too.
Oh yeah. Right. Well, I actually had to that when they were cold. I've had to dump, and I'm not going to say it on the show. John, I'll tell you later. Dave knows. I've had to dump 2 or 3 cans of a very famous beer that was maybe not quite 3 months old. Wow. And I was shocked that clearly it was a bad batch. I can only say. But I won't say it on the show, but I'll tell you later. But and I was shocked. It's like, it was a 4-pack that I bought 2. I bought 2 4-packs, and we drank one. One stayed in the fridge, and it was like maybe 2.5 months after I bought them, and they're only a week old when I bought them at the brewery. And I opened one up, poured it, and it was. I think I drank one, so there's 3 left. I opened it up, poured it. It was horrible. Dumped it, and I opened the other 2 just to see maybe something was bad with that can. Yeah. The other 3 were, so all 3 were.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah. So
it happens.
Anyway. I'm ready for a second beer. Who?
I've already got mine open.
Look at you. All right. What's your?
It's gone a little darker. and that's going to be a theme. My last will be the darkest of the night. And this one's Pumpkin Party. So found this as a single in a cooler at a gas station.
Nice.
And it's Lone Pine from Portland. So I was really, really shocked, surprised. And any other synonym you want to come up with for that. Flabbergasted. I don't know. To find this, because I was looking for pumpkins, to find a single pumpkin and be it from Lone Pine as well. This one is a little more heavily spiced than the Wormtown. I'll give you that. But it's also maltier, so it holds the spice.
Sure.
Pretty much at the same level the Wormtown did. The Wormtown was it's kind of like a light amber color. It was not nearly as malty, but not as heavily spiced, so it's a decent balance. This one's darker, but more heavily spiced, and holding up to the spices, sort of. The spices overtake it quite a bit, so it's still one of those pumpkin spice beers.
Nice.
That I enjoy so much.
That you enjoy so much.
So this one probably won't go down as fast as the Wormtown one.
I hear you. John, do you pour a second one?
I'm going to get it right now.
He's going to run get that.
I will wait then until he gets back.
I'll tell you another style that doesn't particularly age well are kettle sours.
No, not so much.
No. I'd had when I lived in Pawtucket, I'd go to Smug all the time, and they did this one kettle sour with blackcurrant that I absolutely loved. And I bought like 5 or 6 4-packs of it. When I moved down to Jersey, I brought it down with me, and between the temperature fluctuations and the age of the beer, when I opened it, it was just foamy and bad.
Foamy and bad.
Yeah, did not last.
Gotcha. What are you drinking, John?
I have got a Kentucky Pumpkin Barrel.
There we go.
And I'll tell you a little story. I like this one. I like it a lot. This is the first time this year that I've ever tried it. Because in the past I can be a cheap bastard sometimes. Not
Same.
Not so much. I just like, if you're going to charge $14.99, give me 6 bottles, or charge me a little less and give me 4. And the Kentucky barrel aged beers from Alltech have always been the 4-packs, and they're expensive. But one thing I'll say about them is that over the years, they have not touched their price point. And as other beers have increased, they're still getting about, I think I got this at Target for about $14, 13 and change for the 4-pack. And I said, you know what, you dumbass, you should have bought this beer a long time ago, because it is really good. It's a little boozy. It's got a little bit of pumpkin to it. And it's got the spice. And it's 10% alcohol by volume. So it's a nice nightcap pumpkin beer, or maybe something to have with pumpkin pie after dinner on Thanksgiving and knock you out.
There you go.
There you go.
Good beer all around.
Right. There you go. I am, hold on. I am drinking from New Jersey, Little Hippo Lantern.
They've been making that for a while.
River Horse Brewing, pumpkin ale over in Ewing. Used to be of Lambertville. Moved to Ewing, to my chagrin, because that was.
We've lamented the loss of that space on many a show. It was a mill, and the whole brewing system was all gravity fed.
Yep,
it was a beautiful thing that hoists the malts all the way to the top, mash in, and just let everything flow down.
Yep. So and there you have it. So yeah, they got this not too long after they bottled it. And yeah, it doesn't make my top 3 list either, but it's a solid pumpkin. It's a solid pumpkin. So anyway, there you have it. All right, let's talk about. I mean, we always pay homage to Wild Bill's, right? For starting the pumpkin beer.
Homage or blame them.
Homage, right? Homage, but pay homage to or blame them. Yeah, how you want to look at it. But I mean, we could trace pumpkin ales back 200 years.
You trace it back to the Mayflower.
Yeah, 400 years. Well, almost 400 years. 350 years ish. Because there was no grain to brew with, so they had to find something.
Yeah, but it was more likely squash rather than pumpkin.
It was gourds. It was other gourds. Yeah. So pumpkins just became what it was because it was that's.
But as I have always maintained, when they brought in their first crop of barley, they stopped brewing with pumpkins because it was awful.
Sure.
So,
well, I'm sure they didn't bring.
Brought it back.
Here's the thing. I'm sure they also did not bring a whole hell of a lot of cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, and allspice over with them either.
No, probably not.
So when they brewed with pumpkin, they only brewed with pumpkin.
They also probably didn't wear Uggs.
Right. That's true, too.
I often wonder about that, though, right? Because they did have...
What, the Uggs thing?
Well, no. what they actually... Now, certainly the pumpkin beers of old colonial times. And I did come prepared with my colonial pumpkin ditty.
There you
go.
Here's the storytelling, people.
Here's the storytelling, right? But this is from pre-colonial times, and probably about the time of shortly after the Mayflower arrived. But it went, if barley be wanting to make into malt, we must be contented and think it no fault, for we can make liquor to sweeten our lips of pumpkins and parsnips and walnut tree chips. So those guys and gals were pretty, they were resourceful. As you guys said, they didn't have barley. They didn't have hops, right? So for most beer, barley is the fermentable and hops are the seasoning. Mm-hmm. They found other stuff, pumpkins. We don't really see parsnip and walnut tree chip beers these days, but I'm sure somebody's going to get on that right away after seeing the show. But who knows what they might have seasoned those beers with, right? Because they knew when beer was made in England that what the components were that added flavor, and maybe they did use something to balance off the pumpkin and give it a bitter finish. What herbs were available to them for seasoning, I don't know. They certainly didn't have to worry about Reinheitsgebot or anything like that. So,
no. Who was going to jump on them?
Yeah, nobody was going to give them a hard time. All they knew, they wanted to get drunk, and
that was it. I just hope they didn't use a gourd as the grain and use spruce tips as the. That would be. I don't know if that would be good or bad. I mean, that
might work.
You never know.
It might work. The one thing I've always wondered, because one of the primary spices in pumpkin spice is nutmeg, and Connecticut's referred to as the nutmeg state. Mm-hmm. Do nutmegs actually grow in Connecticut? Were they in? Or why is what? See, I don't know why they're called the nutmeg state. It'd be interesting to find out.
That's a good question.
It's possible they had nutmeg, if that's why Connecticut's called the nutmeg state.
Well, I'm sure that there's somewhere in Connecticut that nutmeg grows, right? I mean, Maine is known as the blueberry state, but there's really, 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 really good blueberries in New Jersey.
Yeah. Yes, there are.
But New Jersey is just globally the garden state, right? So.
And people laugh at that because you drive through New Jersey. People are like, what are they growing? Smokestacks?
Yeah.
But when you get down into southwestern Jersey,
well, it's like a 20 square mile. It's like a 20 square mile radius of crap.
Yes.
And then there's a little bit there's another 20 or 30 square mile radius around it of and then it's beautiful,
But unfortunately, when people drive through New Jersey, they start in Philadelphia on Route 95 and go into New York City on Route 95, taking the turnpike. Yep. And there are large stretches of nothing but trees, but you don't see a lot of gardens.
No, but they're all far off. All right. Anyway, so that's kind of.
So I just found out why they're called the nutmeg state.
Why are they called the nutmeg?
Apparently, there were no nutmegs there. It's applied to Connecticut because its early inhabitants had the reputation of being so ingenious and shrewd that they were able to make and sell wooden nutmegs.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
So they were shysters.
So they sold faux nutmeg.
That's pretty funny.
There you go. I'm going to throw this comment up from Doug again. He mentions a couple of just a few minutes ago. He said, Narragansett has brewed a pumpkin beer, Bruguru. I'm headed up to Rhode Island. Hope to get some. Going to visit Sacred Profane. Did you get there, Dave?
What do you think,
Doug? What do you think?
And if you want to hear about it, tune in next week.
Yeah,
because next week is when John and I will regale you with our travels over this past weekend, the things we did, the things we drank, and I have to say I hit some of the bucket list breweries in New England on this trip. Oh, it was a lot of fun. So we'll talk about it next week.
We'll talk about it next week. Yeah, we'll get some New England and and West Pennsylvania beer talk.
Steel City.
Steel City talk going. And yes, just I'll talk more about it next week, but I did indeed have an Iron City.
You have to.
I also had an Iron City Light while I was there too.
Wow. You don't have to do that.
That you don't have to do, but I did. Research. I called it research.
When you go to Baltimore, you do have to have a Natty Light, but
right. There you go. Anyway, cool. Yeah, this is going down pretty good. This River Horse pumpkin. How's that beer that you said was going to take a while, Dave? The pumpkin party.
It
looks pretty. I mean, it looks pretty dark for. I mean, it's for 4.2% beer. Is it a brown ale?
No, they just say pumpkin ale.
I mean, it
says pumpkin ale. It's not quite a brown ale. It's a dark amber.
All right.
It's not quite a brown.
The last shot of it looked darker than that. But.
Yeah, it's. I'm not. When you really dive into the spice profile of it, the spice profile is a little too harsh. I'm not saying heavy-handed because it does balance it pretty well with the body of the beer and the maltiness of the beer. Yeah. But when you actually concentrate on the spice profile, you're getting a harshness as if they went a little overboard with maybe the allspice or clove and didn't balance it out with any of the ginger and nutmeg. Yeah. Or cinnamon. Or they overcook their spices, which you overcook your spices and you're going to get this harshness in the flavor of the spices.
Sure.
So really not sure what's doing it, but at first I wasn't quite sure what I didn't particularly enjoy about this beer is when I really concentrated on their spice profile. I think they can balance the spice profile on this a little better.
Fair enough.
So maybe I'll jump on the Honest Craft Beer Reviews and post that up there, John.
There you go.
Sure. I'm gonna put together over the next, because I only had a couple so far. So any of these pumpkins that I do have, I'll write my annual article, like a review on each, and I'll put it on our website, but I'll put it up on Honest Craft Beer Reviews as well too. So
I better take a picture of it before I finish it to support it and get a little visual for the post.
There you go. One more comment from Douglas Smith. One last thing. Patriots are going to have a long, long season. With that, I need another beer. There you go.
And with Doug, at least you've recognized it early because as Giants fans, we're 3-1 right now. This is not sustainable.
Yeah. We're 1-3.
The rug is going to come out under.
All right, well, hold on.
Break our heart.
Understand we're playing the Packers on Sunday, okay? Just want to put that out there. Of course, we're playing the Packers in London, so anything can happen in London.
And the Giants have never lost in London.
But we almost beat the Packers with our third-string quarterback Sunday. The Patriots do have a long season ahead of them, but I'll tell you what. That game Sunday, I went into and this has not happened in about 20 years. I never missed a Patriots game. In the past 20 years, I've maybe missed 2 because something major was going on. But my son and I watched the games together, either at Taco Mac or now I have NFL Sunday Ticket. Every Sunday it's a ritual. We watch the game together. And I had an expectation we had no chance of winning. I went in, and that, as I said, hasn't happened in 20 years where we didn't at least have a chance. And the Pats put up a fight, and we were in it every minute right up to the end. And I think it was one of the most enjoyable games. Even though we lost, it was one of the most enjoyable games in quite some time. They just,
there you go.
They played great.
You had a wet behind the ear rookie step in. And, some people may remember way back when Bledsoe got injured.
Yep.
Brady comes in and the dynasty was born.
And the rest is history, right? Exactly.
Yeah. And that's kind of funny because I was in a Patriots forum on CBS Sports page the week after Mac Jones went out, and people were complaining about Mac, and they're like, yeah, well, Zapp's going to come in and do the same. I'm like, you're not getting that again. That's not going to happen. Don't even think about that. You're not getting another Brady. It's funny how people, but I tell you what, he played a good game for coming in.
He did.
First time
I will tell you one thing. I would not have wanted to be Belichick's headset after that one argument he had with the ref. What's funny you say that you don't miss a Patriots game. I rarely miss a Giants game, and I did indeed miss watching most. I'll even say that at least most of this Giants game, but I did see a lot of it. I'll say I was actually sitting at, and I'm going to call it Heinz Field because it's not Acrisure Stadium.
No, it's Heinz Field.
It's Heinz Field. I was at Heinz Field watching the Patriots.
MetLife is Giants Stadium.
Right.
Sorry, Jets fans. It's Giants Stadium.
It's Giants Stadium. Yeah, the Steelers Jets game. Right. And I was sitting there wearing my, I'm Jersey Johnny, right? So I got my jerseys. Wearing my James Harrison Steelers jersey, and sitting next to 3 Jets fans. All right, and of course the Jets won. So that was fun. But in any event,
one being his lady,
right? And I had my phone on Fox Sports, watching the Giants game while watching the Steelers game. Watch just back and forth like that, and it kept refreshing. So I only saw I'd see 2 plays, and for most of the plays that I did watch on my phone, the Giants were fortunate enough, or at least Fox Sports I was fortunate enough that Fox Sports streamed it. I pretty much watched the Steelers Jets play, and then I was able to watch the Giants play, and then I was able to watch
it. Turns.
It just took turns. I kept watching constant football, so it was pretty good. But
now, Bruguru, there's a thing. If you're friends with John on Facebook during football season, right, you're going to be highly entertained because he is a rabid Giants fan. Anything, even the slightest thing go wrong, they could be up 27-0, take a 2-yard loss, and he's going to take to Facebook and rant about it.
Mm-hmm. So I've seen that. I've seen it.
So a bunch of his friends and I run a John Fladong Giants rant over under contest. He doesn't know what it is. Mm-hmm. He doesn't know what the categories are. It changes every single week. And anybody who took the unders this week won because nothing hit because he didn't post.
I didn't post anything. I didn't.
Not a thing.
Well, because the only thing that I was doing on my phone was watching the Giants game. So I wasn't going to leave watching the Giants game to comment about something stupid.
But one of them actually had nothing to do with football per se. It was how many open mouth selfies of you and Jess would go up either on your page or Jess's page.
Right.
And you had one selfie and your mouths were closed.
There you go.
Which is extremely rare. We call them the fly catchers.
Very rare. So, anyway,
great. We had fun with it.
I've been known to do the same thing during a Patriots game, so no judgment there.
No. Oh no, it entertains us when he's not watching. When the game is on and he's not piping off, we all think he's dead. we worry about him. We put out
usually. If the Giants, usually by the middle of the first quarter, if anything's going bad in the game and I haven't commented yet, there's several people that will actually comment on Facebook on their own pages, and they'll mention me, so I get it. John, is everything all right? Where are you? Why aren't you saying anything?
Yeah, that's how we know he's still kicking.
Right.
That's funny. So anyway, beer podcast.
Yes,
this is a beer podcast.
This is a beer podcast. So back to that. Back to beer.
Back to pumpkin ale.
Well, I mean, let's. You know what? Doug opened the door. We walked through it briefly.
We did.
Now we walk back out. I do have one question, and refers to sports, kind of, before we continue on to beer. Back onto beer. John, I see over your shoulder, you have TB12 on your wall.
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you think there is truth to the rumors of his and Giselle's pending breakup?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, they've been separated for a while, and now there's pretty good intel that they've each gotten divorce attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
I think Tom probably sees this as liberation so he can play till he's 65. Yes,
the jokes I hear out there is like, so she's divorcing him because he has a job? Man, right. Are they ever happy?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, here's my thing right there. Because if this does indeed happen and they get divorced, Giselle will join a very elite crowd of only Eli Manning and Nick Foles as being one of only 3 people to take rings away from Tom Brady.
Oh,
yes. The other joke. Yes.
And she can do it because she's actually year over year, she's made more money a lot more money than he has. Of course, Tom is unique because he's given up when he was with us many years. He gave up the high dollar salaries to keep other players on the team because his philosophy was he wanted to win. You know,
absolutely. I mean, he this contract he has, this pending contract that he has for whenever he retires. I heard it. I didn't see what it was.
I don't know what it was either, but it was on my end.
Yes, it was.
Oh, I know what it was. I got a road back tin tacker down.
Tin tacker. There you go.
And it fell over. Okay.
The pending contract he has is to be an analyst or whatever with Fox Sports after he does, whenever that happens, retire.
Yep.
That contract alone, as it is right now, will make him more money than he's made in his entire NFL career.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. So back to pumpkin ales.
No,
we talked about a little bit about the spice.
Yes.
Right. So pumpkin spice, if you actually, and John knows this, I've made pumpkin spice infused vodka.
Yes.
As much as I hate pumpkin spice,
I might add.
Yes, there is a drink that I make with it. It's basically a White Russian, but you take the vodka out and you put the pumpkin spice vodka in. I call it an October Revolution. And it's the only pumpkin spice thing that I will drink other than beer when I have to. Mm-hmm. But with the pumpkin spice, we know it's cinnamon, we know it's clove, we know it's nutmeg. There's allspice in there. Ginger, typically. Mm-hmm. Star anise. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't realize that there's a little bit of white pepper in it as well. Mm-hmm. So a little bit of white pepper in there. So knowing these elements of pumpkin spice, have you ever come across a beer where they've gone way too far with one of the spices and has made it nearly undrinkable?
Yes.
Sometimes I've come off where it's just nothing but clove. Mm-hmm. Yes. And that is just, and then there's beers that have gone way too far on the cinnamon side for me.
Balanced is a good word in beer for a reason.
For everything. And especially,
I think clove and nutmeg to me are the most predominant if you looked across the spectrum, and it makes sense because they're probably the most pungent spice that's going to be used, right? So I don't think I've ever come across one that I couldn't drink or finish, but I do. I mean, I really enjoy spicy beers, so I may be an outlier in a little bit.
Oh, then you like my pumpkin spice because I up the white pepper a little bit to give it some nice.
Well, it gives it gives it a tiny little bite, and it also does balance out other spices.
Yeah, that's why it's in
to a
there.
Point.
Most part. I've never had one where they've gone too far on the star anise because I don't think anybody actually uses star anise when they're doing beer.
Yeah, I've had a couple. Yeah. Cardamom's another one that's used a lot too, and mainly it's used a lot in holiday beers. But I've had it in some pumpkin beers too.
Wow, which is interesting because it's not actually part of the pumpkin spice.
No,
profile.
It's not. But they've used it very minimally. But it's there. You can it kind of acts like the white pepper almost.
Yeah, and I don't like cardamom.
Balancing in a different way. I don't particularly care for it.
This is why I don't like wit beers.
Right.
Because I'm not a fan of cardamom.
Right.
So
I do like ginger when I come across it, and it doesn't. I don't think it's pronounced enough. It tends to pop more for me in a beer that has a nice caramel malt backbone to it.
Yes. Yes. We'll agree.
And you can even with the ginger, and if the caramel is done right and the malt is done right, you get even almost like a pie crust type of vibe going on.
Do you like the ginger with just the flavor? Or do you like the heat of the ginger as well?
Both. I like the spiciness and the flavor. Probably the flavor more, but if you can get the latter.
So now, like a beer like Good Juju from Left Hand.
Yeah,
I've never had that one.
That's just, I mean, there's no real malt backbone. There's no caramel, obviously, to it. It's a lighter beer, not lighter and lighter in color, right? But that's more of the ginger heat. That's more the ginger spice.
Yeah, there's a brewery in New York called Rushing Duck that does a beer called Zinger Beer, and it's all about the ginger. Mm-hmm. And it's a hot beer.
And that's the way it should, right? In beers like that, if that's going to be your signature ingredient, then that's what I want. I want to get that. I want it to be pronounced. I don't know if you guys remember Mile Square from the 90s in Jersey, but they did a ginseng ale that I really enjoyed.
That was a good.
Oh, I never had that.
Yeah, it was very good.
Ginseng ale.
Ginseng
that would
ale.
be. Yeah, I would I would love to try one of those. I've never had a ginseng ale.
I think that may be one of, if not the only one of the very few beers.
I don't remember any other ginseng ales.
Yeah,
I've never heard of one. No,
we'll have to. A buddy of mine has a DeLorean. We'll have to go back.
There we go.
And try it out.
The only thing is, though, if you go on O'Reilly Auto Parts, they are out of flux capacitors.
They are. They're getting them in though. They're getting them in though.
And I'm not kidding. O'Reilly Auto Parts does in their inventory list flux capacitor. It's always out of stock, mind you. But they do. O'Reilly
Auto Parts does have a flux capacitor list.
It's got a part number and everything.
Yeah.
Well, if you do get it working and you happen to do that, swing by Massachusetts around 1991 or so and get me a case of Post Road Pumpkin Ale. Brooklyn does Post Road now, and they took it over. But Post Road was a private brewery in that time, and they actually did a number of beers. They did a nice winter warmer and a pale ale and an IPA. But even today with Brooklyn, it's a pretty decent.
It's a pretty decent beer. I had the Post Road winter warmer. I never had the pale ale, the IPA, or anything, but I did have the pumpkin ale and the winter warmer. They were both good beers. They were both good beers back then. Yeah, I would definitely swing back. There's a number of beers. I would have to put a trailer on the DeLorean because
his first stop would be Stick and Jab.
Oh, I would definitely go right over here to Ocean, to Heavyweight. Go see Tom and pick up several cases of Stick and Jab.
The whole trailer would probably be full of that.
That was
because being a an alt, it's going to last. Yeah. Stick alt that stick alt that he did was just phenomenal. I mean, it rivaled. It was a little bit, if you could even call it this. It was a little bit more on the, beefier, maltier side than your Age, but it was damn close to your Age. It was really good. Tom really spot on. Made a spot on stick alt there.
Have you guys ever done a show on DeLorean beers? What if you had to, if you could do it? What beers would you go back and get?
We actually did one. We actually did. Your favorite beers that have been discontinued?
That's right. We did do that. I forget who was on, but we did. Yeah, our top 3 favorite beers that were discontinued. Let me.
Who did we do that with?
I can actually pull that information up right now. Talk amongst yourselves.
I almost want to say that was with Tom.
I think it might have been. I'm going to find out right now. Hold on.
Or maybe the first time we had John here on, wasn't it?
I don't know. I think we've talked about that before. I know we've talked about.
Yeah, I think it was.
I mentioned Panama Christmas Ale as a beer.
I think it might have been with the guest that we're looking at.
I'm going to find out right now. Hold on, right, just for a minute. Hold on.
We are holding on.
Keep talking.
Well, hold on. There's like a bunch of rock songs that have that as the title, right? Hold on.
I believe so.
My favorite was by an artist named Ian Gom. No one knows him. Such a great song. Any rate. So
then I'm looking.
Sean's still. So we're
talking. I'm going to find this.
We're going to stretch and stretch. So we're. Do you have a third beer coming up, John?
I do. I'm going to get it. Let me while we're doing that.
It was with Tom.
It was with Tom. Who are we looking at here?
This is Buffalo Bill Owen.
There he is.
This was my introduction to pumpkin beers. This is from the New World Guide to Beer by Jackson. I don't know if you can see it, but there's the pumpkin ale. Right?
There it is.
This is 1988, and
and is he wearing a Widmer shirt?
He is, and he actually was famous for wearing other breweries' T-shirts while he was working at his brewery.
Well, that's funny because if they do a collaboration brew day at Bolero Snort, they're not allowed to wear Bolero Snort shirts. They have to wear shirts from other breweries. Right, John?
Yes, they cannot wear Bolero Snort shirts.
That's kind of cool. He's wearing a Widmer shirt. And the thing is, I don't blame Bill for the pumpkin thing. Yes, he reinvented it. He brought it out. But he kept that West Coast. He kept it kind of contained. I blame Calagione. That's the one I blame.
Well, but Owens did, I think pumpkin ales, first of all, I think they are the original American style of beer, right? Because you are colonial aspect of it. But if you think about pumpkins, they're native to North America. So when the colonists came here, they're probably, what the hell are these things, right? And maybe we can make beer out of them. And there you go, right? So there were no European pumpkin ales. There were no pumpkin ales anywhere in the world. And they've grown into something very different today than, it was out of necessity in those days. And now we've turned it into a holiday pumpkin pie type thing. Yeah. But, from Buffalo Bill was, he did contract it out. And Buffalo Bill's Pumpkin Ale was brewed by Portland Brewing Company in Oregon for a time. Then they contracted it. In fact, Doug and I were at Old Wyndham Brewery in Connecticut while they were brewing a batch of it in the mid 90s or so. And I'm sure he remembers that, but they had a national presence. It was one of the first pumpkin ales I ever tried. They were one of the first 3 brew pubs, I think, in the country. And they brewed one of the first pumpkin beers. And then of course it took off and everybody started to say, hey, people seem to like this, but people do also seem to love them or hate them. And we see that here tonight, right? But
I'm usually in the other camp, that latter camp. Well, actually, I think the thing that annoys me the most about it is the seasonal creep of them.
Yeah,
we start seeing them in August.
Yep,
that's ridiculous, and that is definitely Calagione fault.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see that point of it, but that's not unique. I mean, you see that with Oktoberfest too, right? Those beers start showing up in
absolutely, and end of July, absolutely.
Yeah,
and I always said too that if seasonal creep, if there's any justice to seasonal creep, it'll get so early it'll back up onto itself and finally correct itself,
and the universe will implode.
Yeah. I have
Christmas beers will be out probably next week, right? So
we're getting soon. Within the next couple of weeks, we'll start seeing.
John's watching all the shelves for celebration.
Oh yeah, I'll go and pick up 2 cases straight away. But I have the information we want. I'm gonna open my 3rd beer. Did you open your 3rd beer yet?
Oh God, yeah.
Oh yeah. What is it? Let's put it up there.
Well, let's finish with mine because mine will be a segue into the top 3s.
All right, we'll finish with yours. All right, you know what? I'll just pour it and we'll say afterwards. John just went to get his, so I'll pour mine. Yours is going to be a segue into the top 3s.
Yours might be as well.
Mine is as well.
Yeah.
So let's let John open his, and then I'll read these here, really quick, as John just asked. The list we did with top 3 favorite discontinued beers. I apparently on these lists that I save, I was not saving yours and the guests. I was only saving mine because I hadn't started making up the list yet. So I only have mine here. So my 3 favorite discontinued beers, top 3, I should say, of all time. In order, I will give you is number 3 is Wooden Beanie.
Of course.
From Brokes. That's the 7% Abbey Brown, aged in Jack Daniels barrels with Madagascar vanilla beans. My number 2 is indeed Stick and Jab from
I'm surprised that's not number 1.
And my number 1 is Cricket Hill.
Oh yeah,
Cricket's
Nocturne.
Cricket's Nocturne, the Schwartz beer.
My I remember one that was on my list, which was Tumbler from Sierra Nevada.
Yes, Tumbler is a very good beer.
As a matter of fact, when I took the tour, I asked them because they had in their showcases they had a bottle of Tumbler. I'm like, why did you ever discontinue this beer? And of course, the poor tour guide doesn't know the answer to that.
No, not at all.
But I was still taking him to task on like this was a fantastic beer. Yeah. It was every fall I looked forward to that beer coming out. Somewhere I do have a Tumbler shirt. Love that beer, and I know for a fact that was one of my top 3.
I used to have a Tumbler shirt.
It got burnt.
Yeah. It got toasted. We'll call it. It got toasted.
It got toasted badly.
One other thing I had on here too was, I guess we'll call it an honorable mention. I guess this is the way I was writing down honorable mentions at the time, and it was nowhere near as good as these other 3. And there are others that put in there, but I had to list it there, and I remember talking about this because it's almost 2 years ago that we did this. But it's Yingling actually made a Bock beer. They actually made just a single bock, just regular bock beer. And now it wasn't the best bock in the world, no, but it was pretty damn good for being a Yuengling beer. And they discontinued it. Get this though, and I found this out. They discontinued it. I just happened to be at the brewery. We did one of the 3 times I've been out to Yuengling in Pottsville. They just heard that they were discontinuing bock beer, so I actually bought 2 cases of it because I mean the cases were it was a Yuengling beer and it was a bock beer, right? I think the cases were like $20, so I bought 2 cases of it, right? They were discontinuing it because they were coming out with an IPL at the time, and they wanted to replace bock on their brew schedule with an IPL. Now, I don't know why they just couldn't add in an IPL and continue brewing the bock, but that's what they did. Marketing decided they're getting rid of the bock and they're introducing an IPL. So,
and guess what? The IPL's been discontinued.
In a year and a half later, the IPL has been continued. They've been brewing bock beer for like over 100 years. They were brewing that bock beer, but the IPL lasted a year and a half, and they never brought the bock back.
I remember it. It was pretty good, actually.
And I don't know if it probably wasn't on my top 3, but you brought up bocks. One of my favorite discontinued beers. Sam Adams did a series of small batch beers, and they had them in those kind of like weird bottles. And they did a smoked bock called Cinderbock.
Cinderbock's an amazing beer.
That was fantastic. I was hoping that they would have put that into the regular lineup, but it got discontinued. That was amazing.
Cinderbock is an amazing beer, and if there's any justice in this world, this time next year there will be a brewery brewing that beer, and I'm leaving it at that.
I will drink it.
What?
I will drink it.
I'm sure you will.
that was just a beauty. The idea to smoke the malts and make a bock out of it, I think was genius. Just the balance between the sweetness that a bock displays with the smokiness of the.
And they do box and double box so well. That would probably be one of the beers I would go back for. Would be the original Samuel Adams double bock from
the original. You're reading my mind, John. The original Sam Adams double bock.
That was the best one. They made it stronger later on. They made it into a specialty beer. But the original, and it didn't come in 6-pack holders. It came in these cardboard boxes of 6 bottles, just like the Winter Lager did too originally. And that Winter Lager was actually very good too. I don't think I'd put it on the list but it wasn't spiced originally. It was just it was a wheat bock, and it was good. It was really, really good.
It was like a dark, it was like a dark, I was going to say Weizenbock because it's a wheat bock, right? But it did not have the bubblegum profile of a Weizenbock. It was it was like a wheat Schwarzbier.
It was like a strong bock that was lightened a little bit with wheat, right?
Right.
But you're right. It didn't have the bubblegum and clove notes of a Weizenbock, so it wasn't quite that strong. I don't think.
No, it was very light. It was nice.
Yeah, it was enjoyable beer.
So that's great. I love this. I love talking about this. All right. So anyway, there was those 3, but then I also found this. All right. This past June, on our show with the 3 of us and Tom,
right?
We did top 3 favorite beers of all time. So not necessarily discontinued, all time. And I'll just read them down really quick. Mine were number 3 was Urige, Stickle Alt, shocker,
surprise.
Right. My number 2 was Sierra Nevada Celebration, and my number 1 was
Not surprised.
Not surprised. And my number 1 is Guten Carolus Cuvée Van de Kaiser, the Blau, the Imperial Dark.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then I have 2 honorable mentions that are clearly could be tied for number 3 with Urige, and that's Weihenstephaner Hef and Schneiderweiss Tap 6 Aventinus. So there you go.
Yes, I remember the Aventinus. Sitting in Munich, drinking it right off that tap. That was just.
That's for you, dude.
I know that's for me, and I will accept that graciously.
All right.
Because I've had that experience.
John,
and
he called me and woke me up at 6 a.m. to send me a picture of him drinking Aventinus right off of Tap 6,
and right over my shoulder was you could see tap 6 over my shoulder.
Is that a violation of the Geneva Convention? I'm pretty sure it is.
That is cruel and unusual punishment.
It was. So, and then I had to go back to bed. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Anyway, Dave, your top 3 were Top and Goliath SR-71.
Oh, God. And the thing is, it's funny because it's really probably unfair putting that on the list at all. Because I've only had it once, but I was so enamored with it. And I get the feeling that if I had tried it again, it may not be as good as some
down
of the
a little
other
bit.
beers.
Yeah. And that's generally what happens with a good beer, but it falls back into place kind of thing.
Yeah.
You got to have it a second and a third time. No, your number 2 was Cantillon Creek, 100% live.
That will never fall off the list.
Right. And I'll give you 3 guesses what your number 1 was.
Nah.
Oh, jeez. My number 1.
I'm going to shoot you if you do not remember this.
I'm tired. How am I gonna? I know. Oh, boat.
There you go.
Boat beer.
There we go.
Right. And he had 3 honorable mentions. He had Ballast Point, Ninja Canindra.
Indra Canindra.
Ninja Canindra. Yeah.
No, Indra Canindra. Indra. No, there's no J.
I'll tell you exactly what happened. I put Indra, and autocorrect changed it to Ninja. I'm really guarantee what happened.
Indra Canindra was one of those beers that you either hated that beer or just absolutely adored what they did with it, and were able to take all those flavors and marry them into this just beautiful concoction they came up with.
And your other honorable mention was the brewery Beauregard.
Yes, that is the blueberry sour that they made.
Right. And I would imagine at this point your other honorable mention would be Coastal Brew Works Building Sandcastles. Probably.
Yes, that would probably knock Beauregard right off of there.
There you go. Thank you very much. All right. Tom's, by the way, his number 3 was Sleeping Bear. His number 2 was Pursuit of Happiness, and his number 1 was RJ Rocker's Black Pearl. John, your number 3 was Geary's Pale Ale.
Absolutely.
Your number 2 was Catamount Christmas Ale, the one that Harpoon bought. And then your number 1, do you remember?
Augustina Maximator.
There you go.
and I'll tell you what, I would add an honorable mention now if I did it all over again, because I just actually got to have this beer again. Since I moved out of New England 20 years ago, I have not been able to get Long Trail beers. I did bring some back in 2015, last time I was in New England, but now I've been ordering off Halftime, and they'll ship you a 6-pack. They're pretty reasonable with their shipping. I bought a single of Long Trail Ale. It is one of the few beers that I have fond memories of that beer, because I can still remember looking through the glass doors of a package store in Waltham, Massachusetts, and seeing this beer and grabbing it and just marveling at how wonderful. It's a German style alt beer. It's so malty, hoppy, and delicious. And it's as good now, in my estimation, as it was then. And that is a rare achievement. And I like the single bowled me over again so much that I bought a 6-pack the next time I ordered from them. And it is just, it's one of my favorite.
Long Trail Ale is a great beer. Their double bag is very good. And you know what? This time of year, I always look for Harvest.
Yeah.
Yes.
Their maple brown ale.
That's got a touch of maple in it. And they're up there. They know how to use maple. Maple can be one of those things that if you don't know how to use it, you're going to destroy your beer. If you overcook it just 1 second, your beer's done.
Exactly.
You've killed it.
All right.
And top adjuncts. What was your top adjunct, John?
Maple.
Yeah.
And they do it right in that beer. In the long
absolutely.
It is overpronounced.
If any brewery in Vermont doesn't do their maple right, they just need to move.
Yeah.
We got some interesting things coming down the pipe with maple, so stand by.
Lawson's.
Stand by.
Lawson's. What's the name of their maple beer? It's escaping me right now, but that is a delicious beer.
It's Leaf.
No, it's named after somebody.
Yeah, I'll think of it. You're looking anyway.
I'm looking it up.
All right, well, while you look it up, let's talk about these beers, because we have to segue into our top 3s, because it's getting to that hour.
It's Fayston Maple Imperial Stout.
Fayston Maple Imperial Stout. That's what it is. Fayston's Maple.
It's a beautiful beer.
Fayston's, yeah. So, John, what are you drinking
right now?
Your third beer. Yeah, what is that?
Third beer is let's see.
Ooh, that's a dark one.
The Warlock.
Look at that. You're drinking a Warlock.
Now the debate is
that is not this year's Warlock, is it?
This is last year's Warlock.
Yes.
Yep.
They've changed the label this
I haven't
year.
seen it yet this year.
You know how I know they've changed the label? This is what I'm drinking right here. So you can see the different labels. And
put them both up. Put them both up. Put them both
there
up.
There we go. So you can see there's a little difference in there.
Yeah, what is the little difference? Because they look pretty much identical. So
I don't know. Maybe it's just the colors look a little different, but maybe that's just the cameras. Okay.
All right.
That's fair enough. It's the lighting.
You like my glass?
Oh, that's cool.
That's a great glass.
Love this glass.
I've seen that glass many times on the show. I remember the first time it was on the show. It was 2 years ago, and you were drinking Smug's vampire blood or something like that.
Yeah, I forget what exactly they called that. It just looks so damn good in this glass because it was this bright blood red. The neat thing about that beer is they released it for Halloween, and they had used this very strange combination of sour cherry and blood orange juices together. Right. Which, and I love Smug, but I didn't think it worked all that well. But what they did is they had a lot of the juice left over, so they packaged it into. If you've ever seen a transfusion and the things they bring in that are full of blood, they took those packaging, filled those with the juice, and sold those on the side as well, which I thought was an ingenious way to get rid of an ingredient you weren't going to use. I know I bought one. They suckered me into it. It was really cool. But the neat thing about that is they had 4 different versions of it. They had A, B, and O. And it all depended upon where it sat in the bright tank,
right? Because
they noticed as they started to can these, as they got further and further down, it got thicker. Yep. So they gave them the designations of the blood type. It was pretty, and then they packaged it in 4 packs with each one of the blood types in it.
One of each, yeah.
It was pretty cool. Genius marketing.
I will. So you guys both drank Warlock. I will tell you, I'm not drinking a Warlock for my third beer because I actually had a Warlock at.
Is that what you? Oh, I was wondering.
I had a Warlock at Southern. No, that wasn't that. I had a Warlock at Southern Tier. I'll tell you right now. Full disclosure, my third one was going to be Weyerbacher Imperial Pumpkin. Okay,
interesting.
But I did not. I was not able to get it in. More on that later. But. Anyway, I did drink a Southern Tier Warlock at Southern Tier in Pittsburgh on Monday.
There you go.
So since I already had one this week.
And full disclosure, I've actually had a pumpkin beer prior to the show this year.
There you
go. Gear Block put out a pumpkin. I had to try it since I was up there. It wasn't bad. I'm sure it was a really good beer for people like pumpkin ales.
There you go.
But I did enjoy it.
But my third beer is this one right here.
Oh yes,
there's the king.
Schlafly Pumpkin right there. It's happening right there. Schlafly from the St. Louis Brewing Company, better known as Schlafly. And or some people pronounce it Schlafly.
No one calls it
Schlafly. No. There are many people that call Schlafly Schlafly.
Please don't introduce me to them.
Target, right?
Target.
They also say Target, exactly. So anyway, and this beer is, well, more on that soon.
So
segue.
This is a segue into the top threes, considering. And you know what? We usually let the guests go first, but I'm going to go first, considering my top threes have all been mentioned. Every single one of them.
Always?
And it's probably the same 3 I had last year.
Well, we're going to find that out. We're unfortunately unable to find that out right now. But we will revisit this next week. Next week, we'll talk about that. So you got to tune in for that.
We forgot to populate that in the data, but
our top 3. Well, you know what? As a host of the show, your top 3s are allowed to be mentioned. That's why we let the guests go first.
Yes. Okay, we'll let the guests go.
See, I guilted him right back into it.
John turned into a Jewish mom there for a second.
just for a second. There you go. So tonight's top 3 list is indeed top 3 favorite pumpkin beers. Third time we're doing this list. We are going to revisit after the show what we picked last year, and we're going to...
Actually, no, it's the second time we've done the list. First time we did the show, we were not doing top 3s.
We did our top 3. It was actually one of the lists that led us to doing top 3 lists. When we did our top, let's put it this way, we did our top pumpkin beers.
Okay.
And I believe we did 3. We might have done 4 or 5, but you and I do 4 and 5 of the top 3 anyway. So.
Yeah, I'm only doing 3 tonight.
Right. But in any event, so we do have history of this, so we're going to revisit it, and we'll talk about it next week on the show about our trips. But in any event, tonight's is indeed, again, top 3 favorite pumpkin beers. Let's let Mr. Staradumsky please go first. Take it away. What are your top 3s, John?
Sure. And in the spirit of sometimes we go over, I'm going to do, if it's okay, 2 that you can't get anymore, and then 3 that you can. And I'll try and be quick about it. But the 2 that I'm going to talk about that you can't get anymore, one of them is Samuel Adams' Fat Jack. It was one of those special. It was also released as Samuel Adams Double Pumpkin.
Yep.
In the
it was released in the same run that Cinderblock.
Yes, it was actually. It was in those same. I had it on draft, both of under both names at Taco Mac, and it was amazing. Just a fantastic beer. And that's the one thing about Sam Adams is I don't understand why they do bring out wonderful beers like that, and at least periodically, not reintroduce them to a new crowd, because that beer was really, really amazing.
It was Fat Jack. They do Jacko Pumpkin now.
They do.
It's not a bad beer. It's not Fat Jack.
It's not that. That beer was stronger. It was a double pumpkin. It had more spice, but it had a lot more malt to it. It had darker malts, and not necessarily. It wasn't a stout, but it was a strong, brown ale type base. Just amazing. And then of course for the one that you can't get anymore, Buffalo Bills to me will always be.
Never had it, so I couldn't comment on that one.
It's just that it's not just the originality. It's one of the beers to me that screams pumpkin. It's not just the spice, but what I always call vegetal, stringy, real. If you've ever had just like pumpkin flesh, it tasted like that.
Buffalo Bills was definitely that beer. Yeah,
never had it.
And for beers you can still get today, so the Schlafly for me is number 3. I actually tried that for the first time ever this year. Always been wanting.
I saw that on Honest Craft Beer Review.
Yeah, that was another halftime score. It really had the pumpkin pie notes. It had the crust and it has the spices and the pumpkin flesh, and I was bowled over by that one. Really good. Number 2 would be Heavy Seas, the Greater Pumpkin, which is another
not a bad choice.
Big, strong pumpkin beer. Love that one. If anybody out there, if you have the opportunity to try that one, do it. And then for the top of all time, it's going to be the Warlock. I just love this beer. There's people talk about pumpkin and I love pumpkin too. And that's close to getting on the list too, but I figured, okay, sorry, Southern Tier, you get one. And if I had to make a choice between pumpkin and
I still think he did it. I still think he did an honorable mention there, John.
Yeah, so now I'm on to 6, so I'll shut up.
There you go. I'll write it down with the honorables. He's got more honorables than we do.
Yeah.
I only have 1, so
I don't have any honorables. But my list is basically John's list with one alteration. My number 3 is Schlafly. I'm sorry, Schlafly. And like the guru said, it is the consummate pumpkin pie beer in the lighter color.
It is.
It gives everything he said. You get the crust, you get the pumpkin.
It's not that light. I mean,
but with some of the others I'm talking about, it absolutely is compared to the other 2 that I'm going to mention. Right.
By the way, it's a great glass I'm drinking it out of.
That's a beautiful glass you got there, John. I have one of those too right over there. I just didn't drink out of it tonight. My number 2 is where I diverge from Mr. Staradumsky's list. My number 2, as mentioned earlier, Weyerbacher's Imperial Pumpkin. This beer is one of those beers you first start off drinking going, actually, I kind of like this beer. For a pumpkin ale, I kind of like this beer. When you're done with it, you will kind of like everything, because this is a pumpkin ale that's going to sit you on your ass. Oof, it's one of the biggest pumpkin ales made out there. I'm pretty certain Avery makes a bigger one, Right? Don't they? I think
Avery makes a 26% pumpkin ale.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That one's
you're not getting much bigger than that.
No, you're not getting. No one's gonna waste their ABV on a pumpkin beer like that. But when you get down to it, their imperial.
I'm sorry. 17 and a half.
Okay, so 26 a bit high.
Pumpkin KY, and it's the pumpkin beer, pumpkin ale aged in Kentucky bourbon barrels, and it's a 17.5% pumpkin ale.
So John just
and they also make a rumpkin, which is Southern Tier too, but they make the original one, Avery.
Yeah.
But the pumpkin.
Avery's rumpkin might be an honorable mention for me.
But the pumpkin, yeah.
But my number one is John's number one. Like he said, taking their original pumpkin ale, and what I love about their pumpkin ale, their pumpkin, to me, kind of almost has notes of pumpkin seeds, of roasted pumpkin seeds in there as well. There's a nice roast to it, a great spicing to it, and then when you blend it with their Double X Stout, and that's what Warlock is. It's the blend of Double X Stout and pumpkin, and it's just a well balanced, beautiful drinker. Let that thing warm up. Let it warm up, because when it's not warm, it's not all that much of a pumpkin ale. It's very stouty, cold. When you let it warm up a little bit, the pumpkin ale flavors really come out of it.
Yeah, the notes the notes of burnt treacle, the roastiness really works so well with the pumpkin and the pumpkin spice. It's I know we mentioned before it's roasted pumpkin seed day, right? And I don't know if you guys have ever had a Elysian Night Owl, which actually is brewed with roasted and non-roasted pumpkin seeds. I think it may be the only beer that I've had that at least advertises that fact that they do. Yeah. And Elysian too has like 50 million pumpkin beers. They probably
but my favorite of theirs is Punkachino.
Yeah,
Punkachino is excellent.
In a former life, I actually, obviously, some of you that are longtime listeners know that I managed a bar back in the day, and we had one year, I only did it once. We had an Elysian pumpkin ale tap takeover. We had 10 Elysian pumpkin ales on, and they do, and I'm not kidding when I say this, they do 20 some odd pumpkin ales every year. We did 10. And
they have a festival every year where they have all of them on tap too. So
and they do, and I will tell you, and without lying, the two that kicked first was Night Owl
and Punkachino.
Because
those are their two best.
Right.
And I think that and the Great Imperial that's
a very good beer. It's a very good beer.
That one's
very good beer. But
those are the most reminiscent for me anyway. So.
But Elysian now has new ownership, so I don't drink as much Elysian as I used to.
Exactly,
if any at all.
Yeah. My top three. I'll give you. It was going to be one. I'm going to give you three honorable mentions, and then I'll do my three. Whatchamacallit? I actually have to with my first by far honorable mention because I had forgotten about the beer because I haven't had it in years. In fact, the last time I had it was out in Colorado at Avery. And that's Avery Pumpkin. We just talked about it, right? The bourbon barrel aged one. Not rumpkin, the regular pumpkin.
Oh, the regular pumpkin.
It's still a bourbon barrel aged beer. It's just not aged in bourbon. It's aged in bourbon barrels. Not rum barrels, right?
And I can say, the rum barrel version is so good.
Hippo Lantern was going to be an honorable mention, and just because it's a Jersey beer, there are some other pumpkins that trumpet, if you will. I'm sorry, I keep using Jersey? That word. No, not in Jersey. Not in Jersey. In general.
Do we have how many pumpkin? Oh, I forgot one of my honorable mentions. Rav.
Oh yeah.
And I'm sure Scobeyville might be one of yours.
Scobeyville is my other one.
So these yes, this is Carton Brewing. Carton Brewing has done a couple of pumpkin ales. They've got a pumpkin cream ale they do with pink peppercorns. Mm-hmm. The pink peppercorns are Szechuan.
Pink peppercorns.
Pink peppercorns. Adds a nice roundness to the beer. And the other one is Rav. The owner is a foodie. And he made a beer that reflected a pumpkin ravioli dish made in Italy that's got the beurre blanc over it and the anisette toast crumbled on top of it. And Not a lot of people like that beer because they didn't get what he was going for, but he absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, Rav was a very good beer. My third one, which was actually my second one, but I just threw River Horse in there because I had it tonight, and it's been around for a very long time. River Horse has been making that beer for quite a while, and it's a decent pumpkin. But of the three honorable mentions, Avery aside, obviously, because that's just a different category with the bourbon barrel age.
Yes, it is.
But it's a barrel aged beer. But the pimp, as Dave said, Carton made one of the first beers they made. Carton opened up in August of 2011. In September of 2011, they did a small pilot batch, and their pilot system at the time brewed a half a barrel of beer.
It was called the tippy system.
They called it a tippy, right? And they had 3 sixtels of it. 3. That's it. They brewed a pumpkin cream ale. Now, Augie, and I'll say his name, and I'll say it once because we didn't say it before. That's it. Can't say it 3 times. He was just on the show a couple weeks ago anyway. So, anyway, he doesn't like pumpkin pie, but he loves pumpkin soup. So he brewed a pumpkin soup beer. And he made pumpkin cream. He took an imperial cream ale, 12% imperial cream ale, and he conditioned it on pumpkin meat, pink peppercorns, orange oil, and ginger. That was the beer. It was amazing. Alone on its own. 3 sixtels of that left. 3 sixtels of that were made. One stayed at the brewery. One stayed at the brewery. One went to Twin Light Tap House, which, is no longer there. Sandy took Twin Light Tap House.
Which is where he drank all the time.
Right.
So he probably set it there so he could drink it.
He could have it. And the other sixtel came to my bar. And we kicked it in 18 minutes.
Wow. Sounds amazing.
Minutes. It was great. Now, for the next couple of years after that, he made this beer and he aged it in Laird Applejack barrels. Okay. Laird is a distillery that's been around since pre-prohibition in New Jersey, and they make Applejack. He took their barrels and he aged this pumpkin cream in.
Laird is right on. They're actually on the Battle of Monmouth battlefield.
Yep, right on the battlefield.
So if you're a Revolutionary War buff, they're part of it.
Yep.
And if you go through any of the old cemeteries in the area down there, you will always see a Laird somewhere. And they were patriots.
Yep.
Not New England Patriots. I'm sorry.
No.
We're talking American Patriots.
American Patriots. So he took these Applejack barrels and he aged his pumpkin cream in them, and he called it Scobyville. Why Scobyville? Because the section of Freehold that the Monmouth Battlefield's in, that Laird Distilling is in, is the Scobyville section of Freehold. So it's called Scobyville. So anyway, that was a long way to get to Carton Scobyville. That's the name of the beer.
This ends your honorable mentions?
This ends my honorable mentions. There we go. Anyway.
Now we can get on to your 3.
I'll make it quick. Schlafly Pumpkin Ale is my number 3.
So we all have the same number 3.
Right.
For the same reasons.
For the same reasons. My number 2, Stevens Point Whole Hog. Hasn't been mentioned tonight. Stevens Point in Michigan. Wisconsin, rather. Great beer. Whole Hog, actually, they've done a lot of different beers. And Stevens Point's a main brewery, and Whole Hog is like a line of beers they do. Kind of a little bit elevated styles and ABVs and so forth and so on. Their Whole Hog pumpkin is really, really spot on. So that's my number 2. Number 1, Dave. It was Dave's number 2. It's my number 1, Weyerbacher Imperial Pumpkin.
It's a great beer.
It's just Weyerbacher is it's a shame, and we really have to get them on the show. We've never had them on the show. Weyerbacher is such an underrated brewery, making amazing beer, and has been making amazing beer for many, many years. And they don't get the kudos that they need to get.
No,
ever.
And it's quite possible. It's quite possible that may be the first brewery I ever went to. I cannot remember, but it very well might be Weyerbacher.
I can tell you the first brewery I ever went to. It was in 1977.
We're waiting.
It was in 1977.
1977. So your father took you.
And my father took me. And it was in Tampa, Florida.
Because you were 8 years old.
Right. It was in Tampa, Florida. All right. Tampa, Florida. and we went to an amusement park that just happened to be sponsored by this particular brewery.
So it was Anheuser-Busch because you went to
Busch Gardens.
Busch Gardens.
Right. So, yeah. So the first brewery I ever went to was Anheuser-Busch.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you for admitting that.
There you go. But there you go. So the second brewery I ever went to was actually Anheuser-Busch too. That was in Virginia at Busch Gardens. Right.
The other Busch Gardens. There's only two of them, and you've been to both.
Right. So.
I got to say, though, you guys are right about the Weyerbacher. It was a toss-up on my list between that and the Greater Pumpkin. For me, the Greater Pumpkin from Heavy Seas won it by a nod, but I have some in my fridge right now. I just love that beer.
It's funny because John, yours on my list was identical, and your number two just barely edged out my number two on your list. So our lists are very.
Heavy Seas Greater Pumpkin is a great beer. Heavy Seas makes really good beer. They're a little underrated too. They really are.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, they make really good beers. They're
Loose Cannon is underrated.
Look, this industry is a what have you done for me lately industry,
exactly,
right?
And so you're talking, so exactly when you look at Heavy Seas and you look at Weyerbacher, right? They've been around pretty much
a long ass time.
For a long ass time, they've evolved through the years up to a point, and we haven't seen an evolvement. And even though they may be evolving, we haven't seen an evolvement from them that have put them into the national spotlight.
No.
But they're still out there. They're still making great beer. They're still experimenting a little bit. If you go to Weyerbacher, the brewery, there's some stuff that they're playing with.
Yep.
They do still play around. They shake up their offerings maybe every 5 years or so. Like about maybe a little over 5 years ago, Tiny got into the regular offerings.
Probably 6 or 7 at this point, maybe 8 even.
Yeah, maybe.
But not quite 10, but a little over 5. Yeah.
But that was not, so they will do it every now and then. Tiny is ironically named because that is one big ass stout.
It's their biggest, it's the biggest non-barrel aged beer.
Yeah. No. Because the barley one's bigger.
Oh yeah, in Blithering Idiot. Yeah.
Blithering Idiot is a bigger beer.
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite beers from.
Oh, Blithering Idiot it's what put them on the map. Oh, and Mary Monk's, yes.
Yeah.
You know what, John? Remember, I drank a bottle conditioned Mary Monk's on the show.
Mm-hmm. You did.
The liquor store, I've got to get back to it. They have one more of them.
Go get it.
And I think it's it's more than 3 years old.
Go get it.
What was the age I showed you on that?
It was 3. It had to be 3. Yeah.
I think it was at least 3 years old because they haven't done it in a while. So I've got to go grab that, and it held up so beautifully. Imagine that, John, a bottle aged cask, cork and cage, Mary Monk's.
Mm-hmm. Well, Insanity is the barrel aged Blithering Idiot.
And I love their tagline for it. The fool has finally lost it.
Yeah. And Heresy is their bourbon barrel aged
stout, Old Heretic.
Old Heretic, yeah. And I actually had last year I had a 5-year-old Heresy on the show.
One of my favorite beers they make is Blasphemy.
Blasphemy is a great beer,
which is their barrel aged quad. Mm-hmm. It's the quad barrel aged. I've got a couple quads in the fridge, but I don't have a Blasphemy.
On about 7.5 years ago, I had a 10-year-old at the time, 10-year-old, so now it'd be 17, almost 18 years old. I had a 10-year-old Decadence.
Oh my God, they haven't done Decadence in how long?
About 17 years. Oh. It was one of the best beers I honestly have ever had.
What was that? Was the barrel aged?
I mean, I'm not going to say it was the best beer I've ever had, but it was one of. If I could give you a top 20, it's in the top 20. Without even thinking about it, it's in the top 20.
I'm trying to remember what Decadence was. It was
a chocolate stout.
Have I even had?
I believe it was a chocolate stout.
And if you remember, in their original lineup, they had a raspberry stout.
Yes, raspberry imperial stout. Yeah,
raspberry imperial stout that got discontinued.
We had that on a Philly beer tour, actually, on draft. I can't remember the name of the bar we had it at, but it was one of the standout beers I had. That beer was so good.
It was actually, I'm sorry, it was an American strong ale, but there was definitely a pronounced chocolate note to it.
But I thought Decadence was another one of their barrel aged versions of something else.
It was a 13% American strong ale was Decadence.
Okay, then it wasn't barrel aged. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So many good beers out of the brewery.
We need to get Weyerbacher on the show, and we need to
we need to do the show at Weyerbacher.
We need to do the show at Weyerbacher and get John up with us to do the show.
There we go. Can you make it up to Eastern Pennsylvania, John?
I'll try. I got to tell you guys, in my role as a storyteller, I would be remiss if I didn't recount this one to you. But talking about Heavy Seas again, Heavy Seas. It is, again, they're just a great brewery that's done so many good beers over the years, and we're lucky to have them. But we've always got a lot of their beers at Taco Mac on draft. And I happened to be sitting in the bar one night. It was a special pint night on a Thursday night when they were doing a Sierra Nevada beer camp beer that was only being released through Taco Mac on draft. And their beer buyer was there, and we were chatting and talking, and we were going on, and he was asking me questions about, well, if we didn't give pint glasses away on Thursdays, what effect would that have? And I'm like, you better not stop doing that, because we like that, right? And then we started talking about Heavy Seas beers, and I'm like, I'm glad you bring them in. So many great beers and everything. About 6 months later, I was asking about the guy, and he no longer worked at Taco Mac. And I asked the bartender about it, and she's like, "Oh yeah, he took a job with Heavy Seas Brewery." So
my story about Heavy Seas is I went down there for a tour. I was with a friend of mine, and when you went to the brewery back then, I don't know if they still do this. You've got to buy the chips to get your tasters, right?
Kind of like Brooklyn,
right? You get those. So, but when you go on the tour guide has chips in her hand. And she will ask questions, and if you get them right,
you get a chip. Absolutely.
So my friend's sitting there going, "We're getting lots of chips." Because I'm standing next to him. He thinks I'm going to answer everything, and he doesn't know me well enough to know that. Well, he did know me well enough, but didn't. He forgot that I'm not going to sit there and just lord my brewery beer knowledge, whatever, over everybody, and just absorb all the chips, because that's being kind of a douchebag. So. Every question, of course, just like all of us sitting here, you can answer every question that they're going to come up with.
Of course.
Finally, and so there was like about 5 questions, and the first 4 people answered. The last one they couldn't answer. She was pointing to a device that looked a little bit like a table. It came in after the fermentation tank, but before the bright tank and all that. And she was asking what the device is. And no one got it. So finally, he looks at me and goes, "Can you please answer this one so we can at least get one chip out of it?" So she was looking, and she was pointing to the hop back.
Right.
So it's like, it's a hop back. She goes, "Whoa, okay." So she flips the chip. So
that's great.
He was quite happy that we actually got an extra chip. The chip went unused because he was full anyway, so we wound up giving it to somebody
else, right? It's funny.
I was driving.
The story's funny because a similar thing happened to me at Harpoon. Probably 10 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. We're up at Harpoon, and the tour guide. Now you have, when you take a tour at Harpoon, you take the whole tour, and then you have X amount of time at a separate tap room than the main tap room, right? You have a X amount of time. To have as many beers as you want.
Oh man, they'd lose money if I was.
No, and they're all 4 ounce.
How fast I drink.
All 4 ounce samples. They're all 4 ounce samples. So you're not getting full pours. They're all 4 ounce samples. But you can sit there, and the key to that is just stay at the bar, because everybody on the tour takes their 4 ounce sample and walks away and drinks it, and then goes back and gets in line. Just stay at the bar, drink it, and hand it back. Drink it and hand it back. Right. So anyway,
how many did you go through?
At any of those tours I was on, I just stayed at the bar. I probably had about 10, right? But
which means I probably went through about
probably had about 15, maybe. Yeah. But no, they don't give you an extraordinary long time. I think it's like 20 minutes or something.
Yeah, 1 minute. I can do that.
You can do that. There you go. Anyway, So, but the tour guide said, this one particular tour, the tour guide said, all right, you have that amount of time, but anybody gets any of these questions right, and I'm going to ask, you get an extra beer at the tap room afterwards, outside the main tap room, right? Like on them, right? So the first, and they asked a bunch of questions, but he was asking questions. He wasn't just saying, what do we call this liquid in the glass? Beer. Okay. He wasn't saying, it wasn't simple questions.
What do we use to bitter beer?
He was asking, like, it wasn't even that. He was asking, like, even harder questions. So I felt the same way as you. I'm not going to sit there and just be an asshole and rattle off every answer, right? So the first 2 or 3, I let go by. Finally, the fourth one, nobody's answering them. Like, nobody got them. I'm just standing there. Finally, everybody we were with, they're all like punching me. Answer the question.
Please answer the question.
Come on, asshole, answer the question. So I answered the question. Finally, every question, he just looked at me and answered the question. I got 4 extra beers for everybody in our group.
That's awesome.
Outside. I'm like, but no, I mean, obviously I was with the most novice people, because a couple of them were some questions that somebody might have been able to answer,
right.
But I mean, but is what it is. But it was similar. But I mean, hey, that worked for me. And I think I only had 2 extra ones, because, like I said, I had about 10 4-ounce pours inside. Luckily, we were taking a train, so we were good. We walked back into Center City, took the T back to where our hotel, and
the T's a good system.
There you go. Anyway, we got a comment here. Let me throw this up really quick. We're going to end the show shortly, but it's Doug Smith. Guinness is a mile up the road from Heavy Seas.
Open Gate.
You guys need to revisit. Absolutely.
The Open Gate Brewery. Yes.
Open Gate.
I was when Carrie and I came back from Asheville, our Asheville trip. We were going to stop there, but they were closed that day.
I got to get back down to Heavy Seas, but we need to get Weyerbacher on the show, and I'm not kidding.
No,
we need to get Weyerbacher on the show, and I would not mind doing a show from Weyerbacher, and I would absolutely love for John to get from Georgia up to Eastern Pennsylvania and do the show with us about Weyerbacher.
That'd be beautiful.
Awesome. And to be quite honest with you, I would love for Tom to come in from Missouri and Doug to get up too, and the 5 of us do the show.
They're great. I have reviews on I'm looking at. I have had the Insanity, Heresy Oak Aged, Blithering Idiot, Weyerbacher 13 anniversary.
13 was a great one.
Slam Dunkel, Double Dunkel Weizen, which was a really
that's an old one. That's been discontinued.
So, quite a few of their beers that and these are just the ones that there's a lot of others I've enjoyed, but never had the time to.
And you mentioned
I love so many of the beers that they've discontinued, and so many of the beers that they've released over the years. But the one beer that they discontinued that I think they absolutely need to bring back, because it's a style that no average younger beer drinker wants to even drink anymore. But I love
bring it back.
Double Simcoe.
Double Simcoe, bottle aged, was. Actually, that may have been one of my discontinued beers, John.
It may very well have been.
It may very well have been, because Double Simcoe itself was fantastic, even 12-ounce bottles. When they bottle conditioned that in the corking cage, it changed the beer. The whole mouthfeel of it became so creamy. The hops smoothed out fantastically, and the flavors of the hops really shone in that beer. Mm-hmm. And God, I miss the cork and cage Double Simcoe.
Yeah,
I do too. All right. On that note,
I've had 66 check-ins to Weyerbacher beers, John.
All right. Well, you know what? I just need to check too. Since you both did, I need to do this too. Weyerbacher Brewery. Here we go. I have checked into.
One we have.
I beat you. I have
67 by 1. That's amazing. The one beer we've not brought up about Weyerbacher that I absolutely love, because, and please make sure you've got an antacid nearby when you drink it, Reserva.
Yeah, Reserva.
Reserva was a straight up raspberry vinegar.
It's good beer.
Fantastic beer.
Have a bottle of Tums.
Yes, please, because it's gonna tear you to shreds.
Exactly.
That beer.
So, all right.
A lot of my check-ins tend to be Sunday morning stout and quad.
There you go. Weyerbacher's so amazing. We got to. We'll talk offline. We'll put this together. Even if it happens next year, we got to make this happen. So we got to get up to Weyerbacher. And let's try and coordinate it. And I wasn't kidding when I said let's get Tom and Doug to come up too.
Oh God, yes, absolutely.
Five of us. We all go to we zero in Eastern Pennsylvania, boom, and then we can do a New Jersey tour while you're all up here too.
And we have to eat at Twin River,
of course.
The burgers there.
Mm-hmm. Twin River. It's one of my standard glasses I drink out of on this show.
They're burgers.
The burgers are amazing.
The beer's really good. The burgers. You go there for the burgers.
Wow. We had a comment, and Doug said, "I'll be there." There you go.
Excellent.
Doug, let me know when you're coming to Jersey. I'll hook up with you and get you some, I don't know. What's that? Coastal Brewworks beer?
I've heard of that brewery.
Yeah, they're around.
They're doing good stuff. Still waiting for their 5th release.
There you go. November. 6.5% coffee porter with
that's right. The coffee porter's coming up next.
Called Nautical Twilight.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm. Nautical Twilight. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be good. All right, John, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Don't stick around. We're going to talk for a couple minutes. I got to do a sports podcast in about 15 minutes. So stick around. We'll talk.
Make the outro fast.
I'm going to make the outro fast. So, and you're not drinking your liter tonight.
Yeah, John, one of these times I'm going to have a liter full of beer, and we're going to race to see if he can finish the outro before I finish my beer.
Yeah, well, I'm going to Helen in 2 weeks for Oktoberfest here in Georgia, which is the oldest Oktoberfest in the United States, and
nice.
I'll be drinking some Moss's there. So
nice, very nice. All right, so stick around. We'll talk to you for a couple minutes after we're done. We'll wrap the show up for today. We want to thank everybody for watching, and those of you just listening to the audio podcast, thanks for listening. Don't forget to visit our website, www.lagerroom.com. That's LAGERROOM.com. And please remember, like us and follow us on all of our social media. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course our YouTube channel. All of them are at The Lager Room. Remember, we go live with a video podcast on both Facebook and YouTube every Tuesday night. Tonight was a special night.
Today's Wednesday.
Today's Wednesday.
Sean,
I got back from Pittsburgh at midnight last night, so we couldn't do the show last night. So anyway, every Tuesday night around 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. For those of you who just want to listen to the audio podcast, you can do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music Podcast, and iHeartRadio as well. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to one or more of those feeds, and you will never miss a show. Again, thanks for following along with us. Have a great rest of your week. Have a wonderful weekend. Drink a lot of beer, but drink responsibly. Enjoy those pumpkin ales, and let us know what you think of pumpkin ales. Write in. Let us know. We want your opinion.
Love them, hate them, please.
Love them, hate them. Doesn't matter. Give us your opinions on them. We'll put it up on our website and, of course, all of our social media. I'll be putting my annual article out as well. Dave will be putting some stuff out. We'll put it on Honest Craft Beer Reviews as well. Well, no, you're going to put on Honest Craft Beer Reviews. You said you're going to do.
I will.
So we're going to put that on. We'll take that off and put it on the website and everything else.
Okay.
So, see what I mean? But let us know what you think. John, once again, thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate it every time you do. We're going to put this Weyerbacher thing together, and we will talk to everyone soon. Take care, folks. Cheers.
Cheers.
Ciao.